All right, good morning. All right, by a show of hands, how many are happy it's Friday? Awesome. All right, all of you. It's unanimous. I'm delighted to report we have 4 good things today, the first of which, and I'll hand this over to Drake in a minute, our inaugural Spaghetti Tower Challenge. I do want to share an insight. I was surprised at the number of people who were afraid to even try. Some people, I went over and gave the engineers a hard time. They've got structural engineers come over, try the tower. Oh, they didn't want to risk their tower not winning. And so my lesson on this is that just like spaghetti towers, our work has the same thing, right? So there's times when we're doing stuff we think, well, can I try that? Maybe it won't work. It's okay. Go try it. See if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else. So we have a VSA report out and 2 updates, and I'll turn the spaghetti thing over to Drake.
Thank you. All right, so we have first, second, and third. First place also gets $25 gift cards, and second and third, thanks to HR, get $10 Starbucks cards. So pretty. So we have team 1. Can we get team saw blades up here? Jason, Derek, come on up. One-man show today?
Derek's not here.
Okay, so here's your trophy, sir. You get the fancy little plug it in to charge it and a little remote. Will you get this too?
I'll get it to you.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Team Loran. We got Aria, Nathan, and Wesley. There you go. Or wait, don't forget your card. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
She grabbed it. Jason. And last but not least, we saved the best for last, right? Nicole and Michelle, Velociraptors. There you go. They all change colors and stuff. They're pretty fancy. There you go, ladies. Thank you. All right, our first report out is going to be in water distribution. We've had a value stream for a while, a couple years now, and we decided to do a refresh. And it was focused last time mostly on T&D, where we moved it more to water distribution as a whole. So I'm not going to take the thunder of the team, but you want to come? Where's Tom? You ready, Tom?
Morning, everyone. So, we spent 4 days working on trying to come up with a plan for water distribution and introduce the team members on that.
Only lady in this group, which was really fun. My name's Pam Williams. I'm in customer relations and customer care.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Joe Duran. I'm in water distribution. I'm the distribution manager.
Morning, I'm Darren Truex. Just recently moved into the planner position.
Good morning, Dominic Iacovetta, T&D technical trainer.
John Lujan, T&D supervisor.
We did have a couple other people that are just not here today. Sam Piggies, Mike, and Jim Chesley was also in the event. So I want to say special thanks to the folks up there that attended the report out and had some good insight and information to give us some data. So the reason for action, truly the reason for action is the water distribution is no different than any other section. We have issues, we have pain points. We have some things that we'd like to improve and some things we need to improve. We also have some KPIs for our program goals that may not be, and they're just not getting met yet. So we wanted to work on those things. So trying to put all this together, we've been doing this for like 5 years now, and we just keep plugging along and tackling things as we go and trying to do the highest priority and get the biggest bang for the buck each year. And that's what we did this time. I do want to say a special thanks to the group because they really dove deep into how we prioritize the work, how we keep people from being overburdened as we're rolling out these events. And because we have metrics from the past, we were able to put a pretty good schedule together that's pretty aggressive for our events because we have current state data now that we didn't have before.
So the distribution system contains more than 3,000 miles of water mains. Denver Water Crews install or replace an average of 60,000 feet of pipe a year. Distribution is important for various reasons, including repairing or avoiding main breaks, replacing corroded pipe, alleviating water quality problems. All these are important to maintaining the system that delivers your water.
So as Tom had said, we started out with brainstorming ideas, and we came up with quite a few up there, as you could see. And we rated them from a scale of 0, 1, 2, and 3, 3 being the highest, 0 being the lowest, on impact and then effort. And then we added all those numbers up and came up with the system as to 1 through, we had 22 when we started. And that's what we came up with on that. And then our current state, we did just kind of wrote it up where some of the ideas we had were waiting on locates. That's where the little backhoe and the time and guys waiting on locates. We had crew size where we had crews with missing people or warehouse some of the issues there. Hiring people, problems with that. And even delving into hydrants a little bit.
So this is our target state, as you see, and we have a bunch of employees here that are very happy. They get off at 3:30. They could go home and have some fun with their families. Also, they could have a little wine or martini or whatever. Also, you see a warehouse there that's fully stocked and ready to go for the crews. And also, we meet all our KPI goals.
So after we wrote the charters up, then we prioritized them on impact and effort, and trying to come up with the order event. So obviously, as Darren had pointed out, we started with 22 of them. If you can see there in the first 2 columns, we narrowed it down to 12 actual events for the VSA. So 6, I want to point out, belong in other VSAs we felt as though, which I just want to highlight, I think is really, really important because those are overlapping issues, obviously, that other VSAs are working on. And then I know there's things in my own group that were some pain points that we feel as well. So I just really want to point out and highlight that there are some issues, I think, organization-wide that really need to be focused on, hopefully ASAP, and can just help trickle into other things as well. And then on the next slide, we then this vertical chart that you're seeing here is actually putting at a high level the future state. So what's the first event, like from the slide before, and saying, okay, when do we want to do that event? Who will be the process owner, team lead? And that's what goes from side to side. Kind of in the middle is the name of the event. And then those ones that you see from side to side are what pre-work, who should be in the event. And as you all know, getting the right people in the room and how important and impactful that is.
So with that, we came up with a plan. We went through 22, or we chartered 22 A3, so that was a lot of work. So there's our rapid improvement events that we got to do this year, and one of them is the Conduit PM program. So when I talk about the Conduit, I'm not talking about those informative emails we get from the Conduit, but our large transmission pipelines that are 24-inch and larger. We have distribution assets that are associated with that. We have, a lot of them are valves. So we got gate valves, butterfly valves, cone valves, ball valves, tapping valves, pressure regulating valves. So we got to not only maintain them, but we got to exercise these valves. So that's a priority, and we got to establish some key performance indicators for that. So we got to get that program off the ground immediately. So that's one of them. The other one is the system quality. optimization. That what's happening is we're not hitting our KPIs, so we got to look at the capacity of work within that work group and see if we could find some treasures for that. So that's a key one. And then the other one is locates. That's occurs at different locations. So we are having some pain points in TND. So when there's a main break that occurs, Central Dispatch will call locates, and when we call them, we expect them to get there in a timely manner. Well, our crews are waiting sometimes 2 to 4 hours. So there's some customer agony and there's some labor costs associated with that. So we got to work on that. So we're going to have some dialogue with the locate companies. And Tom, I think you got some data on that, right? Yeah. So we're gonna come up with a plan to resolve that. And then we're going to have a bunch of other ones next year. So we're going to be busy. Next. You want me to go, Tom?
You can. So this is, you got different sets of metrics. You got the RIE and then you got the VS metrics. These are the VS ones. So, we obviously want to look at safety for improvements implemented, not just identified. Meeting system demand is making sure we make the KPIs, and we're trying to reach all the KPIs for our program goals. Schedule compliance, whenever we work with a work group, we'll run out of schedule, and the more planned work we do, the better off we are. Stop doing so much emergency if possible, or unplanned, unscheduled. Of course, we always go after cycle time and productivity usually on most events, just to kind of help with the standard work.
Okay, and then in the end of it, we had some of our lessons learned and insights. As you can see, there's quite a few of them up there, already just a few of them. Still have a lot to accomplish. It takes a lot of work. WD has a ton of work to complete. It's not all about main breaks and pipe replacement. We do it all. A lot of the feelings on how everybody felt when this was done was they had felt relieved. I think that it was out of 22 of those, we finally got through them. Optimistic that we can actually get through some of these. Moving in the right direction, and felt like this was the best value stream that had been done. And our core values, a lot of people had vision, building a plan, great conversation, what it would look like, how to meet future KPIs, respect the process and see where it goes. Any questions?
How many crews out there for TND, and is there a certain goal that you ask each crew to reach percentage of pipe? And if they do that, are they trying to give a pat on the back or encourage you to do more?
Currently, we got 5 crews laying pipe and then 2 crews that support the pipe crews because of the lead services that are involved now. So we got a 7 on that makeup. We got 6 maintenance crews. We got hydrant crews. We got valve crews. We got water quality. There's a list of crews. And that's why when we looked at the KPIs on that, so when we did the evaluation on that as to whether or not we're hitting it, that brought them up to the top. We want to hit all our KPIs first. As far as the reward program, that's usually done with a supervisor or even somebody that works from another area, or even somebody on the crew. They utilize the program that we have available now. Anybody else?
I want to thank this group for the time they spent this week, and maybe just spend a couple minutes doing a little storytelling about where we started and how far we've come. I think the first continuous improvement event that we did was around the end of 2011. We started off with looking at just one very specific element of work related to pressure regulating valves. So we had a value stream associated with that, And I think it was in July of 2013, we did a new value stream that sort of swept everybody in the section up in that, but predominantly the T&D crews. So I can remember spending a week down here with all the T&D foremen, and it was pretty ugly at times. I don't know, I don't think John was there, but I know Gabe was there, and that was a long week, and there was a lot of back and forth, and a lot of doubts, a lot of resistance, and since that point we've refreshed this value stream. This is I think the third refresh. We spent a lot of time on the crews that are installing pipe. We spent some focused time on the crews that are doing maintenance. This third pass is trying to sweep up stuff that we haven't looked at already, but it's also kind of going back and recognizing that some of the things that we have put in place aren't applicable anymore. There's other changes that have occurred, and so some of the stuff that we addressed 3 or 4 years ago isn't applicable, and we have to kind of take a second pass through it. And the time that I spent this week down here with this group was totally different than what I remember that first week was in July of 2013. The sense I get is that people sort of accept the process. Don't get me wrong, there's still some pushback and some good lively discussions at times. But when we come out of these events, we have this great plan moving forward. We've got a lot more data than we ever had in the past, so it's much easier to make decisions. And I think one of the real big differences now and moving forward is that with all the data we've collected over the years, there's actually going to be some fundamentally different things that we do in 2019 and moving forward. Adding crews and adding capacity where there's gaps, sort of really trying to fix things by adding resources where the data shows that we've optimized as much as we can internally, and now we have to figure out different ways of filling that gap. So I'm really looking forward to the next couple of years to see how we can elevate this, and I think productivity and production will really start to step up, and we're able to fix things that we've sort of had difficulty fixing over the years. So again, I want to thank this group for their hard work this week, and thank all of you today.
Thank you, Garth. So our next report out, a 90-day update. Michelle Garfield, do you want to head on up and build discrepancy communication?
Okay, perfect, thanks. Whew. Good morning, everybody. This is our 90-day update for the bill discrepancy communications. This comes out of the customer experience value stream, and we met back in March, the end of March actually, and I'm ready for the next one. And this event really, the customer experience value stream this year is all around the end user customer survey results. So we're taking action in helping our customers improve overall satisfaction and other gaps that we have. And that's a quick one of the team. That's good. We're good. So our reason for action on this particular event is we wanted to identify gaps in our billing processes. We also wanted to look at opportunities to better communicate proactively with our customers, educate them on their bills, why their bills are coming through a certain way on adjustments. So it was a large undertaking. And then I'm going to turn it over. Tara Cosby was our team leader, and she was instrumental in putting a lot of this stuff into fruition. So she'll talk about what we've done.
One of the biggest changes that we did was to our bill format. Prior to our changes, you kind of had to do the math on your bill from the bottom up in order for it to make sense. And it generated a lot of calls with just confusion as to what's going on with their bill. What do people really owe? So some of the key changes was we added in the account summary an actual line item to show adjustments being done on the account. And then down in the body of the bill, better explanation of what those adjustments are. So people, can look and actually read their statement, understand without having to call back and decipher what the bill actually means. We did 15 different test scenarios with this. There's lots of different types of adjustments that we do, and just making sure everything looked the way we wanted it to look when we pushed everything out. Some of the delay in getting these things moving, of course, is because we had a lot of other people involved, other groups involved. Our IT department took a lot of time to get this correct, and after all the rounds of testing we did, I think we're happy with it. We don't really get calls saying, hey, I really love your changes in the bill, but I think the fact that we don't get the questions of what is going on with this is gonna be the proof that what we changed worked. And then you can go to the next one. The next big thing we looked at was the letters that we generate. So we did an overhaul of all the bills or all the letters that get sent out to customers regarding their statements or anything having to do with their property. That includes some high consumption letters, low consumption letters, what happens with your, when an ERP malfunctions, and kind of give better explanations to some of that. The non-compliance letters went through a complete overhaul, and self-audits. So we've kind of had a change of thought, and pushing some of the responsibility back onto the customers to kind of resolve their own problems, instead of just taking all the ownership on ourselves. So we really did a lot with the self-audit forms. We've got a really nice flyer that goes out with our constant flow letters and with our high consumption letter. And then the high consumption letters, well, let me just highlight. So now that we've got a few months under our belt, we are realizing that we have to kind of step back and relook at some of these processes. We're not hitting the metrics that we kind of expected to hit. And I think that's because we kind of plugged in some of these changes without really thoroughly going through all of the processes from A to Z and looking at how all of our different groups interact with each other. So we're going to have to take a step back in this next month and really thoroughly go through those processes. And I think that's when we'll start seeing the decline in rolling trucks and calls. But a big factor is, the weather that we have. So we had an increase in our calls this year for high bills. We've had a really hot summer, so that's kind of to be expected. So we'll have to just kind of play and see how this rolls out through the rest of the year, I think. And I think that takes us to the next slide.
So these are our metrics, and sorry, I think I might have caused some confusion with my way of thinking. But the initial state, our goal is to reduce high bill calls, complaints, and inquiries, and also reduce adjustment calls, and field activities for function checks, which are a result of high bills and what we call high lows that come through CC&B if the read comes through too high or lower than their normal use. So under the initial column for May, June, and July, those numbers each are monthly 3-year averages. Our overall target is to reduce those numbers by 25%. Under the target columns for May, June, and July, we did a gradual because we knew it would take some time for things to come into play. So in May, we shot for a 10% target reduction. We actually ended up with, that is a true count of what we had, is 274, which is less than our 339 10% reduction. So basically, if the numbers are green, we met or exceeded the target for that particular month. If it's red, we did not. So we have some work. We know our high bill calls. We can explain a lot of that because of the season. It's hot, and it falls out of those range. But to Tara's point, we've also identified some gaps and some things that we're going to work on. Our function checks are through the roof. We're looking at processes. We think we had some overlap with when we should have been sending a letter, we were also sending a function check. Tara actually got a confused caller because it's standard work that wasn't followed. So we're learning a lot as we're going through this exercise. Ready? Which leads us to kind of what we're doing. This is our process control board in customer care. So these are the metrics that we're continually looking at: the call volumes, the function check FAs and read meters, and then the little white chart at the bottom over there is our action list. So that's going over our countermeasures of what we're going to take work on this next month, and that is calibrating on processes. We're trying to get a deeper dive into our function checks to understand why they're high, what's going on with those, and we're doing good on adjustment calls, so we're hoping that's a result of the bill changes. They're not coming in, so we're meeting all those metrics, and we'll just continue to evaluate.
So I think some of our takeaways from this RIE is we all realize that there's much improvement that's needed and that we can do, and it just requires patience. You know, again, we've got a couple months under our belt, and we're having to kind of go back and really look at those steps that we've put in place and make sure everything aligns the way we expected it to. But I think we have a really good group in the sense that we're all willing to do that extra work and make sure things are lined up the way we want it to be. And then I'll kind of just touch base with the bottom point that it takes time to train and agree on these processes and make sure we've got buy-in from everyone. While we have a lot of experts in our group, it's really a matter of getting the right people looking at the right things and going through everything step by step to make sure that that's how we actually should be working some of these, to-dos and processes. And then also just changing our habits, I guess, is another big thing. With the call center, we changed a lot of our verbiage and I'm losing my words here, but how we kind of put the ownership back on customers and how we work through them without rolling trucks as our default option. And I think it's just hard to change those behaviors and then get comfortable with that. So there's a learning curve, I think, with this too. And I do see some good points. I'll kind of bring this customer back up, that he called because we sent a high bill or a high consumption letter, basically stating that, hey, the consumption at your property is a little bit higher. That might be normal. You might be using more water for some reason. If that's the case, then that's fine. But if there is something going on, please call us. Well, this particular customer saw that first letter and said, yeah, I am using water. I watered sod. So in that instance, we could have saved rolling a truck, and we satisfied the customer by giving them information, and it would have just been a letter. But because our processes aren't ironed out, it did result in a couple calls, truck rolls. So again, we're seeing room for improvement on this. So, any questions? Cool.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm John Plonsky, Customer Service Field Manager, and I'm here with James Walker, who's our senior technician here. And so we're here to give a 90-day, this is the final update for our water audit rapid improvement event. So I want to explain why we're here. Again, as a reminder, this is part of a customer experience value stream. And so part of that customer experience 2.0, and then also with changes with water conservation. So we went from more conservation to an efficiency plan, and then part of what we're doing here is to look at our own operations from an efficiency standpoint. So if you remember, maybe what happens is, and this is to piggyback on what Michelle and Tara just were going over with some of the high bills, is a customer calls in for a high bill. This is what we used to do. We would send a truck out, check their meter, make sure everything's good, but then they would want to schedule a water audit. So we would go out, and they would schedule the water audit, and it would sometimes be several weeks out for us to go out there and actually go through their entire system for them, and we put together a report. Our whole cycle time and everything on that was about an hour appointment each time, and because we only had a couple of guys who were doing it throughout the whole service area, it was a lengthy drive around town. It created backlogs, and to no fault to James and Wale, who were the principal folks that were doing it. I mean, they were doing a great job for the customers. We just couldn't get to everyone that we needed to get to. So what we wanted to do now, and why we have this event, is one, we're trying to do more with the customer on the phone to actually, like what Tara was saying, they have a script now going through, looking at the different questions to try to get them more to that self-audit approach. So that was one thing that we're doing. And then when we do send a tech out to look at their meter, one thing that we're doing, and instead of just looking at their meter, we're trying to get in with the customer at that point in time and take a single trip resolution approach. So what we're doing is trying to do a mini audit. So we're really looking at the constant flow, if there is one on the meter, but then we're also trying to figure out, hey, what can we do to help the customer understand what's going on while we're there? And that way we can reduce the amount of callbacks and repeat trips that we have to do out in the field. So our big result was a reduced cycle time from basically an hour to 21 minutes. And I'm going to go through some of the slides, but I don't want to make a big point on focusing on the data. But here's so we eliminated water audit FAs altogether. I'm not showing that up here. We have a single trip resolution success rate, and this is basically multiple trips back to the same premise for constant flows and assist customers. So this was a stretch goal. I think part of the reason we're not maybe getting there quite yet is because we've still been rolling trucks until we've got the leak adjustment form and process squared away, which just happened last week. So I think we'll be better shape going forward. We did reduce our cycle time for the check for constant flow, again, from the hour to 21 minutes. And we developed customer messaging, like I said, and created new SOPs for the field. And we're in the process of completing our training aspect. Go to the next one. So this was our completion plan. We did quite a few things here. We updated die tabs, the card information. So again, that helps the customers with the self-audit. We also, again, changed our process with that leak adjustment. We also implemented a text script. So this is a reminder call. So when we do have exact appointments and window appointments, that, hey, customer, we're going to be there, and this is a reminder that we're going to be at our appointment. So we're thinking that will help with some customer service as well. Then we did merge some calendars behind the scene when we eliminated some duplication with the old conservation group. And we have a control board, we have SOPs, and then we have our training plan. Okay. So again, this is a little bit of a graphic that shows at the left, it's multiple field activities at a service point. So thanks to Matt Larson for pulling this information for us. This is kind of what we're tracking now. What's in blue is what we did last year. So these are the repeat steps that we were going out multiple times for probably a couple different reasons, but they're probably all related. And in red is our improvement for this year. So you can see we're not going out quite as much to the same place for these constant flow and assist customers. So with that, I want to turn it over to James and give us a little bit of his insights and his perspective as what's going on out in the field with the training and all the field activities.
Thanks. So I definitely think the new process has been going really smooth. We do have some work we still have to do, trying to get more touches with customers. But I think overall it's heading in the right direction, and I think all the guys are buying in. So I think, to that point, I think it's moving pretty smooth. I mean, it's really not much more I can tell you, but it is heading in the right direction now.
The metrics are matching, like the last slide. Do you feel like maybe we are, does it really feel like we're going back to the same place last?
You know what, I think so. I mean, we have, like John said, we have, went to a place a couple times, but it's due to the leak adjustment process. But other than that, I think as far as getting touches with customers and they're not having to wait as long, I think that's actually going pretty smooth.
Yeah, I think maybe I didn't mention this or was clear. So our previous leak adjustment process, we always had that verification as a step. So now we're putting that some onus on the customer to turn in some receipts with the form, and that way we can eliminate a truck roll. It may not solve every one, but it should eliminate some field steps out there for us.
And just one last thing, I think we're educating the customer a little bit more too as well than, in the past. I think they're more engaged than how it was in the past. So that's a big plus.
So again, I want to say thanks to Matt for pulling some data for us and that we can utilize going forward. We also have a big thank you to the customer call center teams. So the work that they're doing on the phones up front in the process is a huge, huge benefit for the field. And again, I do want to thank the CSF guys. When you implement change, it can be difficult, and I think most everybody's been very receptive. Again, change is difficult, and it's just there's some growing because James, he's got tons of experience, and you're not going to translate that experience overnight. He's got years worth. So we're just talking one season here. So this is going to be a lengthy effort to make sure that we stay on the training, especially as we have some changeover, because as there's always some changeover in staff. As people come in, then you got to make sure that they're on board, and especially as you go through and you learn things. We're always going to continually learn things, right? So as we learn those, we have to then update our SOPs and our training plans. So we're going to do that. So also thank you to the core team and management for the support, and thank you, Gene, for helping us through the process. Any questions?
So a quick test to see if you were paying attention. So of the three things you saw today, did you see any themes, any insights? You don't get to leave till someone gives me one. But customer, yeah. So think about our customer. What else? It's okay to keep trying, right? We're not going to get perfect the first time. For me, I like the fact that each team sort of took a step back and tried to take a big picture view, right? So it's so easy to sort of tunnel vision in on a specific thing, and we sort of are learning that the value of stepping back or getting up high and looking down and saying, oh, get the whole big picture. So with that, have a great weekend.